Greetings, Wilkinson here. Today my guest is back for another interview. I'm with Kai Brothers, and he talked about his personal stuff last time he was here, and today we're going to talk about his acting career, how he got into it, blah, blah, blah. So, as always, say hi to my peeps.
Hey, everyone.
Okay, let's hear it. How'd you get into it?
You know, I'm one of those guys that just, when I was a kid, 7 years old, I would try to wrangle my sister into like doing skits and performing for my family and friends and try to do things in school with like the choir and whatever productions they might be in. And my mom kind of supported me a little bit. We would do some stuff during the summers where she would take me to some theater that was doing Wizard of Oz and they needed kids or munchkins or whatever. And it just something that always was part of me. It's like I'm sure a lot of artists, no matter what you do, can identify with, there's this thing inside of you that if you can't do it, well, what's the purpose of living? You know, it's like you just have to. It's just in your blood. And,
Okay.
you know, the years passed by. In high school, I was in musical productions. I got a few little good parts, but I'm not like a lead actor type of person. I'm not like the most talented singer, dancer, whatnot. But I definitely wanted to study it in college, and my family wasn't supportive of that. But I ended up, being on my own. If you listened to the last podcast, and could do whatever I wanted. But, I also had to support myself. And luckily I did get to go to San Francisco State, and I took some acting classes there. I majored in business, and then I minored in theater, which I felt was a good compromise for kind of learning and still being a part of it, but not making it like my total career choice in life.
Getting some real life skills while you're at it.
Yeah.
Besides,
Yeah. And I think the cherry on top of all of that is I got to play Tommy Boatwright in The Normal Heart, which was a big thing at the time. I mean, there was even the buzz that Barbra Streisand was going to come see it because she was interested in the rights to produce this piece of work. And it was a very powerful play, if you're familiar with it, And I just...
How old were you then?
You know what? I was older. I wasn't able to go to college at 18, 19. I was probably like around 23, 24 at the time. After a while, I actually couldn't manage going to college anymore. I'm a college dropout, officially. I had to kind of just jump into the workforce and support myself and start a career. And the one great thing about my mom is she always made it mandatory that we took typing classes. At the time, data entry and word processing, all of that stuff became really big and very good paying jobs. And that's kind of where my career started. And it ended up parlaying into a whole, 40-year career in technology with 25 years at Wells Fargo being my final job. But it was sad. I had to kind of just drop out of college and kind of give away the idea of getting a degree in theater or business. And I did take classes on the side, like Gene Shelton acting classes and some ballet and jazz and voice lessons. Went to auditions so many times. I would be like me and one other person at callbacks, and I wouldn't get the part.
Wow.
And I think after a while, and I can tell you exactly what it was, but I won't go into it. It was just this part I really, really wanted, and it happened again. And this time I had to go back twice for callbacks between me and this other person. And when they told me no, I just was devastated. I remember crying, and my friend was on my motorcycle, and we were driving back to the city, and we were just both I don't know, just really beaten down and not feeling like going into that anymore. And it's your ego, it's who you are. You feel rejected to a degree, and it just...
But it's more than that, because they're basically stepping on your heart, because that's for your passion.
Yeah. They're basically saying, no, you're not.
Yeah.
This isn't for you. Why don't you stick to your day job? And, I did a couple little things here and there, but I really just gave up. And then there came a time when I was in a relationship with my soon-to-be husband. We're now divorced, but we were together for about 10 years. And I was kind of trying to turn my life around because I kind of got caught up in the club scene. I kind of got to a point where I just didn't feel like I was contributing to the community anymore. And I did three things to kind of change that around for myself. And I joined the gay softball team, which is where I met my future husband. I started doing volunteer work and worked for a lot of hours at Under One Roof and other places to try to give back to the community. And I joined the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. And that was a way to re-spark that kind of passion in me, because I got to do skits. We got to, we worked under Stan Hill, who, if you know him, he's just an amazing creative guy. And he likes to make it entertainment, not just men in tuxedos holding a binder and singing, classical music or something.
Right.
So, we would have Megan Mullally, and I got to be a backup dancer. Or we would do little skits and little dance numbers and stuff. And I always, wanted to do that, and I did. And then I think, well, I definitely know. I was out at a country western bar, dance place one night, and a friend of mine, his name's Matthew Martin, and he's in San Francisco, very talented, was telling me about this production he was going to be mounting called Hush Up, Sweet Charlotte, and that Varla Jean Merman, who I totally adore, was going to be in it. And the first thing I blurted out was, "Oh my God, I have to see it. I can't wait to see it." And he's like, "See it? I want you to be in it." And I just looked at him like, "What? Seriously?" And, it was a cameo little part, John Mayhew. And I got to come in and waltz with him as a her. And then there's a murder scene. I get killed. And, it was just a very fun, small little thing. But, I really owe him a lot, because he cast me in another show after that. And I never looked back. I just kept doing more and more and more. And I dropped out at the Gay Men's Chorus because I liked it. It was a good way to get kind of started into that realm again. But after a couple of years, it was just too much time commitment for what I wanted, in this.
How long ago was that?
That was, I want to say, like about 17, 18 years ago. I was in my early 40s. The really powerful things I learned from Matthew early on were that it wasn't just your talent, but it was showing up and being reliable and being easy to work with. And I'm saying this because I saw actors that didn't do that.
Right.
And how aggravating it was for the directors and the other actors. And when people didn't show up, or they didn't really commit to it, or they were pulling little drama things here and there. And I remember one actress that we worked with, and she was just such a handful. He said, and she was amazing, like so talented, but he's like, "I'll never work with her again." And so some growing started in me in terms of trying to be, skillful at what I'm doing and try to grow my talent, but also commit to being the right person that somebody would want to be in your cast. That was huge. Then I kept doing more and more things. I got involved with the San Francisco Opera, and I got involved with a group called the Thrill Peddlers at Left Coast Theater. I did stuff at New Conservatory Theater, and it was just one thing after another, growing, getting bigger parts, having more fun. And then kind of the culmination for me in San Francisco, this is all in San Francisco, by the way, was my last opera that I did. And for whatever reason, and this just blows my mind, I was just sort of like a dancer, character actor kind of thing. I don't sing opera. I wasn't,
right.
I'm not
I wondered.
Yeah. But I would do things like be a understudy for a choral member if they had like a little procession moment, or things like an Aida and things like that. And it grew and grew to my last opera that I was in, which was Girls of the Golden West. I was a principal player. That's how I was billed. And only because when they hired me to be the principal female's husband. So I was on stage with her, walking around, doing little bits and stuff with her, just as a silent partner, basically.
Right.
And because I was her husband and because I was on stage all the time, they actually billed me as a principal player in the show, which was,
wow.
And at the same time, I'm doing this other show where we're in like a basement with like 50 seats, doing this crazy gay like parody show, and just the juxtaposition of that. And that happened a couple times with doing these 3,000 seat house productions to like doing these small little underground theater things as well. And to me, that was just I don't know, but I loved it. There was just something thrilling about that, being part of both worlds and kind of doing whatever I could get involved in, no matter what level it was.
When did you leave San Fran?
I left there 4 years ago and relocated to Palm Springs, and right away got involved here. There's so much more opportunity here, which is really interesting. You would not
More than San Francisco?
think that. Yes, only in that, I did some modeling, I did some commercial work, I did a couple movies, music video, live dance routines at Pride, and just so much different, varied things that are available down here that really weren't happening up in San Francisco, or at least I didn't get to be a part of that side of things. So, one of the very first things I did was a Desert Rose Playhouse production of Muscle-Bound Cowboys from Snake Pit Gulch, which if you're in Palm Springs and you were around at the time, you probably heard of it because it was a big, huge hit. It was their biggest hit they'd ever had out of like a 10 seasons.
Wow.
It was a world premiere. It was, they usually perform about 12 performances for each production. And this one they extended and added another 6. So like 50% of the show, they added more, and we were sold out every night.
Wow.
And I just thought, wow, this is so cool. I finally, broke into Palm Springs, and I'm, just riding high on the hog. And then 2 weeks later, after we closed, COVID shut everything down. Yeah.
Wow.
So that took the wind out of my sails. And I think that's also why I kind of started parlaying into commercials, voiceover, anything I could do, that wasn't being restricted by COVID regulations. But that took away from live theater. And I really thought at one point, do I even want to do live theater? Because there was something really cool about walking in for a couple of days, doing some scene in a movie, and then you're done. It's a wrap, And I think I was kind of thinking, and I don't know if I really want to do that ever again.
Really?
Yeah. But I mean, maybe it was just because of the situation. There was really no live theater to be doing at the time. I kind of maybe forgot what the thrill of it was like and all of that. But, come to more recent times, and this year I've already done 3 productions. I've done a dance number at the Camelot, and I did a Water Lilies performance where we actually have 4 guys that do a aquatic kind of dance routine at private house parties. And just, to me, I have to stop right there, because for me, at 60 years old, never thinking I would ever do something like that, and then having been tossed to this opportunity to actually do this, I did not say no. I just, can you do a backstroke and can you do a handstand? I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Not even remembering if I could do that anymore. I'm just hungry for that kind of stuff all the time and pushing myself. And
did you have to do a handstand?
Yeah. And I had to do the backstroke, but it wasn't as hard as I thought it would.
Wow.
Yeah. It just blows my mind that that's where my life is right now. I would never, if you talk to my teenage self that was just dreaming to be a star, maybe he would have been disappointed because I'm not a star. But I see what people like that have to go through. And I've had friends who went from, just doing it for fun to doing it as a career, and it changes everything around for them and they don't enjoy it as much. I also had a friend in San Francisco early on who told me he was jealous that I was doing it the way I was doing it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you had a career and you got married and you have a house and now you're doing acting. And I'm like, wow, I never thought about that. I was just thinking, did I do the wrong thing and not sacrifice everything and become a starving artist and pursue my arts and become, make that my career? And I was always kind of kicking myself. And now, that was when I first started doing acting again in my 40s. I look back and I can recognize how wonderful that really was, even more, because I'm retired now. I can pursue the acting. I can go on cold auditions, cattle call auditions, and whatever. I could go to LA if they need me, or in New York, or everything is opened up because I worked hard. I had a career. We invested in real estate. I got to the point where I am now. Whatever comes my way, I'm going to do it. And part of that is still growing as an actor, as a performer, doing aquatic, performances. Like
who would have thought?
Right. So, and that leads me to, I think, one of the main reasons you wanted to talk today, because you were intimately involved with the last production I was in, which was Boys in the Band,
right,
with the Bent Theater, and you were the stage manager, which you did very, very well.
First time, came in 2/3 of the way through rehearsals, so it came out okay, I think.
No, I don't think anyone would ever have guessed that it was your first time, because you were very organized and you were a taskmaster, which is what we needed, right?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know. I thought I was being gentle.
No, you were, but you kept us on track. And that's what a good stage manager does. So this happens a lot in my life. I don't know how, but it actually leans toward this part of my reality where things just manifest in my life that I've wanted and that I pursued and I've made intentions for, and then they just happen in the most odd ways. And I'll give you a really good example. When I was in San Francisco, Matthew asked me to be his backup dancer with this other guy at the Castro Theater for an event with Leslie Ann Warren interviewed, and then a showing of Victor Victoria. And I was so excited. I was like, that's a bucket list item right there. And
Right.
I went back to my boyfriend at the time, which was my boyfriend after I got my divorce. And he just was not the most supportive, because he knows the time commitment doing productions, especially, like I said, doing theater, where you invest so much time and energy, and it takes you away from so much other parts of your life to a degree. And I think that was another reason why I was like, I don't know if I want to do theater again. But at the time, this was just a small commitment, I don't know, 5 or 6 rehearsals, and then just perform, and that would be it. Well, it happened to be on Valentine's Day.
The performance?
Yes. And I should have tried to spin it like, oh, let's go to a dinner and a show, kind of a thing. And then I'd be in the show.
Right.
But I didn't think of that. I just said, hey, how would you feel about doing Valentine's Day like the day before or after? He's like, why? So I tell him, and he melted down in a little fit that he did every now and then. Just how could you even ask that, we not to do something actually on Valentine's Day? What? And he was livid. And so I'm like, okay, Matthew, no, I can't do it. Well, cut to being down here. And
So you did.
I didn't do it. I got to do another number with her at the Castro Theater. So bucket list checked off on that one.
Wow.
But that was for, it was Mommy Dearest show.
Love.
And I'm down here, this is in February, and I get a email from Felina Kane, drag performer, and she's like, we're doing Victor Victoria with Leslie Ann Warren being interviewed at the Camelot, and I need a backup dancer. Could you do it?
No way. No way.
And I was like, holy bleep.
You could say shit.
Okay. And I just was like, well, how did this happen? And I do now kind of know, because Mark Hustis is the person who produces it, and he did it up there, and now that he's down here, he did it down here. And when he knew they needed a dancer, he knew that I had done something at the Castro with another of his shows, and so he recommended me. And within 3 days, I'm learning this number and doing it up, in front of 500 people. And
wow.
And Bruce Valance was watching, and Leslie Ann Warren was watching, and 500 of my closest friends and neighbors and community here in Palm Springs were there. And it was just wow, I don't know. And then another Water Lilies performance we got to do. And then I did a couple of stage readings that were really fun. And then I just kind of I don't know what's going to happen next, but there's this audition for the Bent doing Boys in the Band. And I kind of had a director approach me right before COVID about possibly doing this part of Hank in that production. And it just sort of planted a seed and lit a fire under me, oh my God, Hank. It was right when that Netflix version of it came out. And I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, something made me, it just resonated with me. I want to do that part. But then, COVID. So cut to now, current time, and they did this audition notice on Facebook, and I'm on a Friday afternoon of all things. So I went, and they had a person there kind of wrangling all the actors and handing out sides for us to, go over the scenes for the different parts that were available. And I said, I would like to read for Hank. And the director's like, no, Donald and Larry. And they gave me some scripts for Donald and Larry. I did my audition. And
So you didn't read for Hank?
I did not read for Hank.
Oh, I thought you did. Because we had talked once before and you said you wanted that part. I thought you actually...
I did not.
Okay, gotcha.
I was not allowed to.
Damn.
But don't feel sorry for me, because wait till I tell you what happened.
I don't, because I know what happened.
I've kind of involved with some organizations that help raise funds for the Bent. And we were at a check presentation party actually before that, we did the benefit for the Bent. And I saw the two people who head up the organization, Terry and Steven. And it was the day after the audition. And the day before, they were going to announce who was in the show. And I just, had some idle chit chat with them and told them how hard it must be for them to, have to choose between however many actors showed up. And he's like, there were like 25 actors or more. And I'm like, oh, yikes. And at that time, I kind of dialed back my expectations. Like, that's a lot of people. And I don't want to raise my expectations and then get let down. So I kind of started to kind of level set in my head. And when I found out that I did not get the part or any part, I wasn't upset, but I was like confused. Like there was this part of me, almost like that, I need to be doing this Victor Victoria dance, like Jazz Hot with Matthew, but it didn't happen that way. And so I'm almost like my instinct told me that I was going to be a part of the show, and yet I wasn't cast. So I was literally like confused more than anything, which is odd. Like I don't even know what was going on in my head or in my body in terms of trying to understand it, but I was just confused. And cut to the check presentation event, and this was a couple of weeks into the rehearsal process for the show, and I was like, I'm still going to go. I don't care that they didn't cast me. I want to see them. I want to be in their face. That's what you do as an actor. You don't, lick your wounds. You just get out there and you just keep going. And when I walked into the party, Terry and Steven just like looked at me and it's almost like their eyes lit up. And I went over to talk to them and I said, I've been thinking about you guys. Like, oh my gosh, rehearsals must be crazy. All those lines you have to learn and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, stop. How good are you at learning lines? And according to Terry, I said, I'm terrible. I don't think I did say that, but it makes a good story. And he's like, oh, because we need a Hank. And I'm just like, right? I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. My jaw just dropped. Wait a minute. Not only do you need an actor to fill, step in, but you need it for Hank. Mind blown. And I backtracked, of course, like, oh, I can learn lines, it just takes me a while, which is true. It might take me 30 hours of just concentrating and focusing on the lines to learn them and commit them to memory.
And if you had gotten the part of either Larry or Donald, you wouldn't be Hank.
No, it's like, things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it, but I feel blessed that these opportunities come along. And
so you came in about 1 week before the show opened, correct?
Yeah. So basically, don't jump too far ahead. All right. I had to do some thinking. I wanted to look at the script, refresh my mind about Hank before I committed to it. And then I finally did. And that was a Wednesday. And then they told me to, download this scene to start learning it, which, Hank's big scene, which I did. But they said the first rehearsal would be on Friday. Well, that was 1 week before opening night. And let me tell you, if I wasn't retired, I don't know how, I would have had to take the time off because I needed that time. And I have a couple really good guys in my life that are special and I'm dating, and they both are very, very supportive, and they read lines with me like ad nauseum, Oh, literally, like, okay, again, after we would finish going through it like 5 times. But I started getting there, and when I think a couple days in, I just set down the script and I called for a line if I had to, and you would feed it to me, but I think maybe 3 times or something. And I have to say, looking back on it, I'm like, how did I trust myself that I could do this? Because it takes me a long time. And maybe, I don't know if you listeners can relate to this, but sometimes when you just have to do something, you just rise above in a way, like you just, part of your whole being just commits to it and does whatever it has to do to make it work. And this happens, when I did the AIDS ride, and let me think about that. I wasn't even a cyclist, but I committed to it and I trained and I did it. And it was one of the most grueling things I've ever done. But I knew what my body could do. And now I know what my brain can do when it comes to having to jump in and learn lines and blocking and, start connecting with the other actors, developing a character, finding nuances. And it was a little, I regretted that I didn't have the full time that the rest of the actors had in that regard. But,
Well, trust me, so did I, coming in that late.
right. And then we had another actor that came in to play the cowboy.
But you know what? It all worked out. Everybody was perfect that ended up in the play.
Well, yes. But at the time that I stepped in, I was like, is this a sinking ship?
Oh, really? You thought that?
Oh my gosh. Totally. It was like people were calling for lines still more than I was calling for lines.
And they had been in it a couple of weeks.
Yeah. And, I'm looking at the script because I'm holding it and they're all paraphrasing like hell. And I'm like, if anyone drops out or if I can't do it, then I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to sink. But
it floated.
and more than floated. It was, I don't know. It was, like you said, it was just the right mix of people that were so committed. I've never been in a cast where if the director says, do that again, and we had to do it 10 times in a row to sync up the dancing with the music and the entrance of Alan and all that stuff. And no one rolled their eyes. No one complained. It was just magical is the only word I can think of in terms of the energy, what we were all committing to this. And now that I know more about it, I saw Making the Boys documentary last night, and I'm intimately aware of the content and the stories. I literally feel like I'm part of a legacy now of something that's just bigger than all of us. This play has been around 50 years plus, and it's dark at times, but there's dark parts of us and our history. And it's just, this is just going to be the pinnacle of things that I have done for a while, I'm pretty sure. And it was, we got 3 reviews and they were all amazing and glowing, and we sold out, our last weekend. And as you know, and you've reported to me, but I could feel it too on stage, the audience was just so, sorry, I don't know why this gets me emotional, but I think it's what I love about acting is not commercial work, voiceovers, blah, 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 movies. I literally felt on stage that it wasn't just me until the lip of the stage. It was me to the back of the room is what I felt like I was aware of and encompassing in my whatever being. And
I told you before, there were 3 spots in it that just, I heard everything 100 times or more, going through it over and over and over and over.
Right.
But there were 3 spots, yours being one of them, your monologue, that made me cry every time.
Yeah.
Because, and I think that's what you're talking about, because you can do your voiceovers and all that stuff, but when you have people sitting out there and they're relating to your story,
right,
and you're making them think and feel and remember.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it.
They're on the journey with you, and they're reacting, laughing, and crying and gasping, because there's some whoa moments, with things that are happening on stage. And, what you're talking about in terms of the emotion on stage, that blew me away. I never tapped into that part of myself as an actor where I literally at one point, when I have a discovery of what my partner has been up to, I literally feel like I'm going to go into a panic attack. And I just was like, where did that come from? I know as a person, if that was me, I probably would, be upset. But
so that you're talking about when Larry went into his monologue telling you of who he was and what he does.
What Donald was.
Oh, okay. Oh, and that connection. Yeah. Mm.
So, yeah. And it was interesting. I loved Matthew playing Larry because when I would start emoting, he would start emoting, and he'd say, yeah, I can't see a grown man cry without crying myself. That's what gets me. And I'm like, well, then buckle your seatbelt, because, that's right, just where my emotions are going playing the scene. And I talked to the director and I said, I'm an empath to some degree, and I'm bringing that to if that's okay, to this part, if that's okay. And he's like, by all means. Yeah. I just look back and I think I'm so glad I never doubted myself, because not only did I perform and bring to it what I wanted to, I went so far above and beyond what I thought I could do. And when people would say to me early on, oh, you saved the show, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, well, maybe, but that just feels like more pressure to me that I now have to make this work. But that's, that also encourages me and motivates me to try hard. And at the end of the day, I can feel like very proud of what I did and how I've grown from this experience.
You should be proud. It was great.
Thank you.
So what's coming up?
I have no idea. This is the time of year in Palm Springs where it's summer and things kind of shut down. Seasons get announced for next year. General auditions start opening up. But to be honest, I have nothing down the pike right now. I have possibly doing another Stephen Michaels Dance Machine dance production. We perform on the main stage a couple times during the weekend, and it's usually like a 7 to 8 minute medley of gay songs to dance to, and that will probably happen again, like for the third year in a row.
That's probably good. You get to recharge your batteries.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Yeah. So I asked you the same question last time before we end, but what in acting, what have you learned?
Well, it's the same thing, because I kind of touched on it last time too. It's trust, and trusting in yourself, and trusting not that it'll work out, but that you can do so much more than you think you can do at any age.
Well, see, that's my story too.
Yeah.
Because the podcast, number one,
yeah,
how would I know all the technical stuff? And I'm doing it. And then the stage managing. It's like, of course, if I'd known what I was getting into, I might not have.
And you're taking acting classes too,
and I'm taking an acting class. So yeah, stay busy no matter what your age, huh?
Yeah. And just, if you're going to commit to something, though, like commit 1,000% and do it. And just, yeah, you'll find it in yourself. Just trust that.
Well, thank you again. This has been a good one.
Thank you. It's great being here again.
Thanks for coming in. I'm sure I'll have you again, maybe in a while.
Okay. I hope so.
Thanks, Kai.
Thank you.